So, I guess some of the themes of these meditations from a distance have been to do with taking stock of what's in your house because we're in our houses. But along with that, it's also been a celebration of taking stock of what's in your inner house. And I think we're all too accustomed to doing an evaluation of our insides and coming up with what we're not happy with. But there's a real healthy process in journeying with God where you and the Holy Spirit together go celebrate what He's put in you, what He's deposited in you, and even bringing up some things. I don't know. I'm a futurist. I score high on future in Strength Finders, and so I always want to move on. But during this time, I've found the Holy Spirit celebrating a lot of things that He's put in me over the years. It's been beautiful to treasure that and then see how they apply to this time. And one of those things is meditation itself. And, having the blessing of retrospect, hindsight, I suppose, I look back and realize how, even when I didn't know what I was doing, I was just following Him with the particular gifting and wiring that I have, the one that loves science and the arts and the lifelong learner that I am, the curiosity. I accidentally learned how to meditate, and it was like my approach to learning was this one of just take it in and chew it and incubate it and process it. Some people would just reduce that down to an Enneagram 5, maybe so. But, I didn't know anything that I was doing was anything other than being myself and relating to the God who created me. And it was in college, it was during my college years that I really became gloriously exposed to this whole life truth that the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ was this processor of all mankind that I could believe, I could observe and pull into my own life. In other words, I became grounded in my identification with Christ, and it's a lifelong Galatians 2:20 style grounding that I still live in today. And as I meditated on it, I don't know that I heard this preached. It just was something I approached all the knowledge of the scriptures the same way I approached science, which was, okay, there's a truth. Now let's look deeper. Let's explore. Let's ask questions. Let's live with it. Let's live in it. And then even let's journal about it, because that's what we did in the laboratory too with our science. And that's how I've lived my Christianity. And back then, I didn't know there were any other styles. So as I began to meditate on particularly having received the life of God, it was so clear to me that I could not wrestle this thing with my own strength, and I needed a life in me to flow through all that I am, all of this wild and wonderful consciousness. That was the most joyful discovery, being spirit filled, not taking this all out and just living like an automaton, but letting the spirit fill all that I am, all of that curiosity and seeker stuff. And it's been a blast, and I'm still doing it. Anyway, it became clear to me a concept, and that is this. God had put His life in me. In fact, the Spirit in you, Jesus compared in John 7:38, a verse we had to memorize in ORU in a Holy Spirit class, and I treasure it still, is where in verse 37 it says, on the last and greatest day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried with a loud voice, and the King James says, ho! It'd be more like, hey, if anybody's thirsty, let him come and drink from me. And I will give him the spirit that I put in him will become in him a rivers of living waters that are going to flow from his deepest inner man. The King James says belly. But the picture is that He plants in you this gushing fountain of rivers, plural, of living water. And that promise enveloped me, and it became so real to me that was what salvation was meant to look like. Now, it was interesting to me that before we had that implanted in us, before the life of God implanted in us to flow out, we were living a life with a void inside, sucking everything in. it became real to me as I looked back on my life before the rivers of living water that I was living in this gimme, gimme, gimme outwardly. Now, I don't just mean stuff. I don't mean stuff. I mean achievement, affirmation, approval, gimme approval, you know, just it, or even stimulation. Give me entertainment. Don't let me be bored. Give me information. Explain it to me. You know, it's not just give me stuff, give me stimulants. It is give me stimulants, but it's all an outward direction in. And so it became very real to me in my scientific bent of mind. What I started saying is that God has reversed the polarity of the way life works. Whereas before I was a giant sucking machine trying to fill myself on the inside, even with good stuff, you know, good. There's great stuff in life that was meant to lift your soul. It's not all bad, those things that I wanted to enjoy. God's a God of enjoying life. However, you get to do it in process of releasing his life through those things you're interacting with. You're not sucking them desperately into yourself to try to fill an emptiness. So what I'm saying, if you know what, like if you think of electricity, polarity is the difference in the charge that makes things go a direction. It's a vector thing. It goes a direction. And the direction of my life had been this way, but God changed it through his life to make me actually have something to flow out to others. So that's where I learned to live, to give. It wasn't just a concept in my head. It was a reality of Christ in me wants to get out. Christ in me needs to suck nothing in to be whole, and in fact wants to get out of me and change his environment and fill it with love and acceptance. All those things that I was seeking, I found out I was hooked up to the source, and now I became a distributor. So I said all that to say the way I worded it in my college days, I have these old journals. I've been journaling since longer than many of you were born. Have a lot of journals. They're precious to me because they represent my journey. And the way I wrote it in my college handwriting journals in the same script that I would have taken my biochemistry notes in is, you are a pump, not a sponge. And I would say it over and over. I would say, because of the life of God in me, I'm a pump. I go out into this world every day and I pump the goodness of heaven. I pump the love of God. I pump just being a friend to people. I pump smiling to people. I pump not being cynical to people. I pump health. I pump strength, whatever. I pump positivity. I'm not a sponge. And what that means is when you're not a sponge, not only are you not trying to suck things in to fill you up, you have reversed that polarity. So if something yucky like rejection, God forbid someone would reject you, but my goodness, they do. If somebody rejects you, but you're living like a pump, not a sponge, the polarity's always already reversed, and that thing just keeps going. Pass on by. Keep going on by. I've told people before, I have come to the point, not always, my goodness, we all feel rejection. We're all human. We want to be loved and accepted. We're mirroring creatures. That's the way we're wired. But there are some times that I'm so living in the pump action that somebody will actually say something negative to me, and I literally didn't even realize it was a critique. I just went, oh, thank you for that. Thank you for observing. Thank you for noticing. Didn't even catch that they didn't mean. Somebody once told me I wake up in a new world every morning, and I actually said, thank you. I didn't even feel the joke that they intended. So it's kind of beautiful. So I just want to tell you that this is not a Parian speciality. This is basic Christianity. Jesus said in John 7:38, the essence of this whole thing is about having rivers of living water flowing from you. There's directional energy in that. You don't have to make it flow. When I said I'm a pump, not a sponge, I didn't mean that I had to prime the pump. Well, you do have to prime it, but I don't have to provide the energy to get that to flow out of me. There's a directionality to the Christianity inside you. It's a vector force. It's going in a direction, and you don't have to supply the energy. You can be tired and it'll still pump, but you are not, my friend, a sponge. And so you are not just sitting there waiting to absorb other people's opinions, or other people's limitations, other people's hurts, other people's whatever it is. Squeeze that out of you today and reverse the polarity. The polarity inside you is to let Jesus out in and through you just like you are, because that's his plan and he loves doing it. Once again, I've preached myself happy. These things are, I hope they're doing you a world of good, because they're certainly doing me a world of good. And God, you're a pump, not a sponge. That's good news. And the world could use way more Christians that get up every day and believe that and stick to it. Is it a battle? At moments, yes it is. But the directionality, the vector force, the polarity is already determined by Christ in you, the hope of glory. So shake off anything that's come into you. You don't need to suck anything in. You don't need to take it personally. We all feel it, but it can flow right away in the rivers of living water that Jesus promised that are his Spirit.